welcome back to Caldwell Cooks with Chef Corey Hooks. Today we are going to make bolognese, one of my favorite pasta sauces to make, and there's so many different things you can do with it. And we're actually going to make it with some hand-cut pasta today, but you can use it for lasagna base, you can use it for stuffed cabbage rolls. There's many applications you can use for this sauce, so it's one of my favorites. So let's go ahead and get started with the sauce first, and then I'll talk to you about some hand-cut pasta. We're going to start with the protein first. A lot of bolognese recipes likes to start with the vegetables first. I like to start with the protein. That way I can build a fond in my pot and start layering flavors in this sauce. So today I got ground beef and ground pork. Both of them are 85-15. I've already got my pot here, my Dutch oven, preheated just a little bit. We call that conditioning the pan. That way it's hot when I add my protein to it, so it starts to caramelize those sugars a lot quicker. So let's go ahead and add our protein first. And what this does is it allows our protein to get good and caramelized and get some color. It also allows us to use the fat from our protein to cook our vegetables with. Turn this back up. All right. Get it nice and mixed. I'm going to stop. I'm going to let it cook, let it do its job. And I'm actually going to season just a little bit, okay? You need to season in layers. You want to be careful not to over season, but everything needs to be seasoned, right? We need to season our meat. We need to season our vegetables. And then we'll finally season the sauce at the end. Just be careful because we are going to cook this sauce for a lengthy period of time to give it some love, let those flavors develop. So you don't want to over season, but you still need to season in layers, in additions to what you're adding to the dish. All right, let's get our meat chopped up real nice here. We're going to let that cook, and we'll talk a little bit about the vegetables and the other ingredients that's going in here. So, as I said before, we're going to use the fat from our protein to cook our vegetables in. And one good thing I love about this dish is you can input a lot of different vegetables for this dish, and you can hide them. So for those of you like me that's got kids at home, I love using this sauce to hide vegetables for my kids and get those vegetables on their plate and in their bellies. So today we're actually just going to use carrots, celery, and onions. And a term we use is called mirepoix in the industry, which is 2 parts onion, 1 part celery, and 1 part carrot. And this is a base for a lot of different dishes, soups, sauces, stews, and stocks. We're going to use this today, but you could use parsnip, you could use turnips and rutabagas. Any type of root vegetable would be great. You could roast off some mushrooms and add it to this sauce as well. All right, so we got a little color on our meat. We've seasoned it just a touch. It doesn't have to be all the way cooked. You want a little color, but we're not cooking it all the way through quite yet. So I'm going to get a slotted spoon. We're going to add some garlic to this dish. We're going to add some tomato paste to give it some nice depth. All right, use a slotted spoon. You could use a strainer and just pour it into a strainer if you'd like as well. Turn this down just a little bit. All right. As I said, you can use this sauce for a lot of different applications. I love cooking cabbage or doing stuffed cabbage leaves, using this sauce as a filling. It's a great base for lasagna instead of just using a marinara sauce. There's a lot of different applications you can use bolognese for. All right, so I got fat in my pan. You might have to adjust, okay? You might have to take some out. You might need to add some fat. It depends on the percentage of what you buy. You can use 95-5 or 90-10 if you want. I'm an 80-20 or an 85-15 fan. So now let's go ahead and add our aromatics, right? This is what we call our aromatics. It's not just a recipe here I'm showing you technique behind this recipe, right? So we sear our protein first, we build a fond, which is all these good bits in the bottom of the pan here. We call that our fond. We're going to use the fat from our protein to cook our aromatics. Aromatics being vegetables. Nice color already in here. Right. You could use bell pepper if you want. In New Orleans cuisine or Creole cuisine, they substitute the carrot for bell pepper and they call that Holy Trinity. So you could do Holy Trinity or you could just add bell pepper to it. Totally up to you. So we're using that nice fat from our protein. We're going to cook our veg in. Give it a little bit of color. Turn it back up. All right, what I tell you we need to do in each level, we're going to season just a touch. Bit of black pepper. Now we're going to add some garlic. I don't like adding my garlic too early. These vegetables are more hardy. Garlic tends to burn very, very easily. So I like to add it towards the end of my aromatic application. Then we have our garlic, and you'll really smell that garlic once you stir it in. It's beautiful. All right, so my onions are starting to get translucent. My carrots are starting to soften. I just added my garlic. Before my garlic starts to burn, we're going to add some tomato paste. What I like about tomato paste is the depth that it gives dishes, okay? The depth tomato paste gives is a real nice umami, acidic flavor. It's going to help bring out the flavor of the crushed tomatoes that we're going to add here in a minute. And not to mention, tomatoes have a lot of sugar, so that tomato paste is going to caramelize real nice with these aromatics. And we're going to give it time to build some caramelization, get a little darker before we deglaze. And that'll be our next step in this process, or this technique, is deglazing. All right. And if you've been with us before, I went through this technique a few times with different dishes. And it's all about the technique, and that's why I teach my students, is try not to get caught up in the recipe so much and focus on the technique behind it, because it's the technique that allows us to create dishes and to give us the confidence in the kitchen to cook. Just like any skill set, there's a technique involved behind that skill. This technique right here, we're searing our protein, building the fond, adding our aromatics, right? Then we're going to deglaze. Then we're going to add our liquids. And then we're going to bring that to a simmer and let that cook real nice. All right, so I'm going to add my meat back right now. You can see the color we're getting on the bottom of the pot. That's from that tomato paste caramelizing. We're going to add our meat. And I'm going to add my dried spices and herbs. Okay, I have fennel seed. It's about a teaspoon. Teaspoon and a half of thyme, that's dried thyme, and a tablespoon of dried oregano. We started out with a with 2 cups of mirepoix, which is our vegetables. So that's 1 cup of onion, a 1/2 cup of celery, and a 1/2 cup of carrot. And then we did about a tablespoon of garlic and a tablespoon of tomato paste to bring you up to speed on the amount of ingredients we've been using. All right, the reason I like to add my dried herbs and spices now is because it brings that flavor out, right? Because they're dried. We need to go ahead and bring those flavors out a little bit. Now it's time to deglaze. Typically we deglaze with an acid. Today we're going to deglaze with white wine. And we'll do about a 1/2 cup. So we're going to deglaze. Be careful if you're using a small pan or a small-sided pan, you want to take that off the heat, okay? Since I have a large pan, I don't have to worry about my wine igniting and burning my eyebrows off. All right. Mix that in real nice. I'm going to turn this heat down just a touch. We're getting a little too hot. It's all about heat control, guys. Cooking is all about controlling your heat and your time. It's time and temperature. Time and temperature. Now you could use ground sausage if you would like instead of ground pork. I've used Italian sausage before and it works really, really well. It adds another layer of flavor to it. We're going to add a little bit of milk. It's about a 1/2 cup of milk. We're going to reduce that milk by 1/2. Okay? Always use whole milk. All right? Always use whole milk. You need that fat content, okay? Or your sauce is likely to curdle or separate. Oh yeah, it smells so good. I wish y'all could smell it. If you're cooking with me at home, it smells great. All right, we're at a good simmer now. Cut it down just a touch, let that reduce just for a minute, and then we're going to add crushed tomatoes. Now, you can also substitute the crushed tomatoes, okay? You can use a marinara, you can use your favorite pasta sauce, something simple, right? A roasted tomato or a roasted garlic tomato sauce would work. Like I said, a simple marinara will work, or a tomato sauce. We're just going to use crushed tomatoes today. But like I said, you could substitute with your favorite pasta sauce and that would work just great. Add another layer of flavor to it. All right, that's reduced by 1/2. We're going to come in with our crushed tomatoes here. Start out with that. Stir it in real good. As I said, this is one of my favorite ragouts to make. So much you can do with it. A lot of applications you can use it for. All right, let's bring that up to temperature. So we added about 1 quart of tomatoes, or crushed tomatoes. You can use fire roasted tomatoes, that would work great. Add a different layer of flavor and depth to it. The sauce is looking great. I'm going to taste it just a bit, just to gauge my salt content and see if we can add just a touch. Yes. The fennel seed. Gotta have the fennel seed. If you like heat, some crushed red pepper would be really great for this. Red pepper flake. I'm gonna add a touch of salt, a little black pepper. But I don't need much. Why? Because I've been seasoning as I'm cooking. Just want to be careful not to season too much during the cooking process, because you can always add, but you can't take away. All right, so bring this sauce up to a simmer. The longer you let it cook, the longer you let that love making happen, the better it's going to be. This sauce freezes real well too, so you can make this in a gallon batch, freeze it in deli containers or Rubbermaid containers in your freezer, and just pull it out as you need it throughout the week or throughout the month, and use it for those different applications, right? Do some cabbage rolls, make a lasagna, or just use it for a simple pasta sauce, okay? So we're going to bring this up to a simmer and let it cook. As I said, the longer you let it cook, the better it's going to be. I would say at least 45 minutes to an hour on a low simmer to really pull all that flavor out and let that love happen. And then we're going to get started on this hand-cut pasta. All right, so now we have our pasta sheet. This is a fresh frozen pasta, and you can find them in the fresh section of your deli grocer's freezer. And I've actually seen it at Walmart before. I've seen it at Publix and Lowe's Foods. It's a nice product. It's a versatile product. They're made for lasagna, but I love using it for hand-cut pastas. It's a nice alternative to the dry pasta and eating dried pastas all the time. They cook very, very quick. You could cut them in a number of different ways. We're going to do a pappardelle cut, which is pretty much 1 inch wide. And don't feel so bad if you don't get them exact, because it's the thickness of the pasta you need to worry about with cook time, not if it's cut wide or thin, okay? So if I got a piece like that, and I got a piece like this, they're still going to cook at the same rate. Why? Because they're the same thickness, okay? So we're going to cut these with a simple pizza cutter. I love using a pappardelle or a thick cut pasta for this sauce because it holds really well, it's hearty, it's flavorful. Now you can't use this for raviolis, this pasta I should say, but you can use this sauce with raviolis. There's another option, stuffed ravioli filling right there, bolognese. It's limitless. All right, so we're going to cut these up. Fresh pasta takes a little less than half the time to cook than dried pasta. Rule of thumb with your pasta, cook it al dente, right? Al dente literally means to the tooth. It's going to have a bite to it, okay? I got my water back here on the back burner going. I've already got it seasoned with salt, okay? Rule of thumb with your pasta water, it needs to taste like the ocean, okay? That lets you know you got enough salt in there to penetrate the pasta and season that pasta, okay? And why do we do that? Because pasta absorbs, it absorbs flavor just like rice, right? So when you're cooking your rice, same rule of thumb. Make sure you add your salt before you add your liquids because it's gonna absorb that salt. So we've already seasoned our water with salt. It tastes like the ocean. This fresh pasta will literally take 3 to 4 minutes, okay? In which we're going to take it out and we're going to add it to our sauce straight out of the pot, okay? So let's go back to our sauce for a minute. It's been simmering away. As I said, the longer you give it time, the more love is going to happen, the better it's going to taste. It's the most important ingredient, right? You've heard me say that before if you've watched me before. All right, so we're going to give it one more final taste just to make sure all the flavor's where it needs to be. Oh, that is good. You can get some of the sweetness from the wine, some of that depth from the tomato paste. All the spices and herbs come out. Very, very good. And so let's get our saute pan conditioning or heating up. Okay. Pasta's about 2 minutes away. It's looking great. Now, every time I cook pasta, I want to slightly undercook that pasta, okay? Why? Because we're going to finish cooking it in the sauce, okay? And in Italy, pasta is not about the sauce, okay? Like it might be in America. It's about the pasta. That's what it's about, right? So, we're going to finish cooking that pasta in that beautiful sauce we just made. And what do you think is going to happen with that pasta? It's going to absorb all that flavor from the bolognese, right? So we don't have a pile of pasta with 4 scoops of sauce on top, right? No, we don't eat pasta that way, okay? You mix your pasta with the sauce in the pan right as it comes out of that water, and that way it starts absorbing that flavor from your sauce. No matter what sauce you're making, or if you're cooking fresh pasta or dry pasta, you still want to use that technique to get the best product, okay? So we got our pan hot. We're going to add some bolognese. Got our pan real hot. Okay, turn it down just a touch. Out comes our pasta. So I'm cooking this 3 to 4 minutes. We'll cook it in our sauce for another 1 to 2 minutes. Get out. There we go. All right. Some nice tosses here. Just a little more. Back to our burner. Okay, so I remember growing up, come down to the kitchen table, there'd be a bowl of pasta and a pot of sauce. No, no, no. So you need to go ahead and finish that pasta in the sauce and then serve it. See how nice and thick cut that is? It's hearty. I'm using Teflon pan, so that's why I have these rubber-ended tongs here so it don't scratch my pan up. All right, so we're gonna try not to splash myself. I'm gonna turn this up just a little bit. Let that cook just for a minute. I'm gonna grab my bowl. All right, it's looking good. Even with dried pasta usually takes about 8 to 10 minutes al dente, and then another 1 to 2 minutes in the sauce. Do it the same way. All right, so let's get a nice twirl on our pasta. I'll turn this burner off. Nice twirl out of the pan. That twirl gives it some height. Put some of this extra ragu around it. All right, real hearty. It's a nice hearty pasta. I like finishing mine off with a little Parmigiano Reggiano. What I have made here is what we call gremolata. In Italy, they call it gremolata with a T. In France, they call it gremolata with a D. The main reason is because they border each other, so a lot of things go back and forth there. But it's chopped parsley, lemon zest, and a little garlic, minced garlic mixed together. And it adds a nice, refreshing, crisp flavor profile to something that's really hearty and really deep. So it works real well with stews and braises and hearty pasta sauces. It adds a nice flavor. You get the brightness from the lemon without the acidity because we use the lemon zest, so that's one thing I love about it. And there you go. That is pasta bolognese with Parmigiano Reggiano and a gremolata garnish. Hope you enjoy.